Errol Flynn talks about the gay stars from old Hollywood that he dated behind their backs. Errol Flynn was born in Hobart, Tasmania, on June 20, 1909. His full name was Errol Leslie Thompson Flynn. He was one of the most famous and interesting stars in Hollywood's golden age. He was known for his daring roles, devil-may-care attitude, and undeniable screen charm. His father, Theodore Thompson Flynn, was a respected biology professor, and his mother, Lily Mary Young, was Irish, and pushed him to be independent from a young age. Flynn showed early on that he was rebellious and loved adventure, traits that would later become important to both his real life and the roles he played on screen. His early years were marked by being kicked out of school, getting into trouble with the law, and working as a gold prospector in Papua New Guinea for a short time. All of these events added to the story of his wild youth. Flynn's way to fame was not like most people's. Besides working as a farm overseer, fisherman, journalist, and even on ships, he tried his hand at many other jobs before becoming a movie star. All of these things happened to him in real life and gave him the authentic, brave figures he created. Warner Brothers noticed him in the early 1930s because he was good-looking, athletic, and liked to take risks. He was soon cast in his big breakout part as Captain Blood in 1935, which made him famous right away. The movie was a huge hit, and this was the start of Flynn's relationship with Olivia de Havilland, which would become one of the most beloved screen pairs in Hollywood history. During the 1930s and 1940s, Flynn was in a string of hugely popular action-adventure movies. Many of them were set in the past and needed actors to be good with swords, horses, and a sense of adventure that few actors could really pull off. Robin Hood in The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, may have been his most famous part. The movie is known for its vivid technicolor, exciting stunts, and Flynn's brave, heroic performance as the famous criminal. He also had roles in the hit movies The Seahawk, 1940, Dodge City, 1939, and the biopic They Died with Their Boots On, 1941, in which he played General George Custer. In his part as the perfect swashbuckler, Flynn showed bravery, wit, physical strength, and romantic charm. Off-screen, though, Flynn's life was just as dramatic as the ones he made, though there was often more sadness and scandal. People knew him for his love of women, drinking, and new experiences, so tabloids often wrote about his personal life. He was famously charged with statutory rape in 1942, but he was eventually found not guilty. The trial hurt his reputation, but it didn't have much of an effect on his box office appeal. During this time, the term "in like Flynn" became common, referring to both his win in court and his reputation for being good with women. He lived a busy life and struggled with drugs and personal problems. These things started to show on him as he got older. Later in life, Flynn tried to play more serious parts to show how versatile he was as an actor. For example, he played older, more complex characters in That Forsyte Woman, 1949, and The Sun Also Rises, 1957. He also wrote an honest and sometimes shocking autobiography called My Wicked, Wicked Ways, which was released posthumously in 1959. It gave an unfiltered look into his troubled life and showed both his regrets and his unrepentant desire to live on the edge. The book has become a cult classic and is often called one of the most interesting autobiographies of a Hollywood star ever written. Errol Flynn was a famous Hollywood swashbuckler who was known for his good looks and daring roles on screen. He was married 3 times during his troubled and publicized personal life. He married Lily Dita, a French-American actor, for the first time in 1935. Dita was a former Ziegfeld Follies girl and a well-known movie star in her own right. She was almost 5 years older than Flynn and added glitz and class to the relationship. Their relationship was known for being very unstable, with emotional highs and violent lows. Even though they had many public and private fights, the pair stayed married for 7 years before getting a divorce in 1942. They had 1 kid together. In 1941, a son named Shaw Flynn was born. Sean had a short playing career in the 1960s, which was sad. He then became a photojournalist during the Vietnam War, which was much more dangerous. He wasn't seen or heard from again after going missing in Cambodia in 1970 while covering the war. It is thought that they were caught and killed by the Cimier Rouge. It was unclear and sad what would happen to him. Flynn got married a second time in 1943, not long after getting divorced from Dita. This time he married Nora Eddington, a young woman he met in front of a lot of people while she was working as a clerk in the courthouse during his controversial statutory rape trial in 1942, from which he was eventually found not guilty. Eddington was much younger than Flynn and became interested in his busy life and the attention that came with being famous in Hollywood. The first girl, Deirdre, was born in 1945, and the second, Rory, was born in 1947. The marriage lasted until 1949. During that time, Flynn's career started to go downhill as his behavior off-screen became more noticeable than his work. Even though they got a divorce, Flynn was said to still be friendly with Eddington, which was different from his first marriage, where things were very hostile. Flynn married Patrice Wymore for the third and final time in 1950. He had met the beautiful and talented actress while shooting the romantic comedy Rocky Mountain. Wymore was over 20 years older than Flynn Jr. when they got married. Most people say that his relationship with Wymore was more stable and long-lasting than his earlier marriages. However, it wasn't always easy, mostly because Flynn's health was getting worse and he was still struggling with alcoholism. They had their only child, a girl named Arnella Roma Flynn, in 1953. Much like her half-brother Sean, Arnella's life was tainted by her father's fame and the pain of her own tragedies. She died in 1998 when she was 44 years old. Errol Flynn is the maternal grandfather of actor and artist Sean Flynn, who was named after Rory's late half-brother. Sean is Rory's daughter. This younger Sean Flynn made a name for himself in the entertainment business. His most famous role was as Chase Matthews on the hit Nickelodeon show Zoe 101, which aired in the mid-2000s. In this way, the Flynn family heritage lived on into the 21st century, connecting the golden age of Hollywood to today's youth culture. On TV, Errol Flynn spent a lot of his later years in Port Antonio, a small but beautiful town on the northeastern coast of Jamaica. He did this after slowly stepping away from the Hollywood glare. In the early 1950s, he moved there with Patrice Wymore to get away from the attention and chaos of Hollywood life and to find peace and quiet again. Flynn quickly became well known in the island community after falling in love with its beautiful scenery, calm seas, and mild weather. He bought a huge estate called Navy Island and became a loud and eager supporter of tourism in Jamaica. Flynn wasn't just a passive resident. He actively worked to promote tourism and economic growth in Port Antonio because he thought the place had the potential to become a global destination. He put money into the hotel business and owned the Titchfield Hotel, which is one of the oldest hotels in the Caribbean at one time. He also became well known for promoting a unique and fun activity: bamboo rafting down the Rio Grande River. These rafts were first used to move bananas, but now tourists use them to enjoy Jamaica's natural beauty in a slow and beautiful way. Thanks in large part to Flynn's attempts to get the word out. His ideas and charm helped turn Port Antonio from a quiet coastal village into a new place where wealthy and adventurous tourists want to go. Legendary swashbuckling actor Errol Flynn, who was known for his sexy good looks and troubled love life, is said to have written a stunning and enlightening fake book in which he talks about a part of his private life that has been kept secret. For decades, movie stars like this one became famous in the 1930s, with movies like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. They were known for being good with women, but new works show that Flynn's personal life was a lot more complicated and multifaceted than anyone knew. These writings, private letters, rumored journals, or the whispered accounts of close friends, say that Flynn said he had sexual and romantic relationships with several famous male stars during Hollywood's golden age. This was a time when being gay in public could ruin a career. He doesn't try to make his experiences sound shocking or shocking. Instead, he talks honestly and surprisingly tenderly about the emotional connections he made behind closed doors, with men who, like him, lived under the oppressive shade of AA strict studio system and a culture that judges others. Flynn is said to write with a lot of affection about a long-rumored relationship with Tyrone Power, the hot star whose sexuality has been a topic of debate for years. Flynn is said to have said, "Tyrone had an elegance and a vulnerability that drew me in. Our moments together were rare jewels stolen from a world that would never have understood." He had a lot of power, was married several times, and kept his personal life very secret. If Flynn's writings are true, he and she had a short but passionate relationship that was hidden by the glamour and illusion of Hollywood's public face. Cary Grant is another name that comes up in these private memories. People from that time often said that she was mysterious and complicated. There were rumors about Grant's longtime relationship with actor Randolph Scott for decades, even though he was married 5 times. Flynn suggests that he had a brief romantic relationship with Grant early in their careers, writing, "Cary had a wit and warmth that belied the polished veneer he presented to the world. We found comfort in each other for a while. Not a thing, more or less." If it's true, Flynn would be at the center of a secret group of bisexual and gay stars who lived a dangerous double life in Hollywood. Flynn also thinks about the people he met who weren't as well known but were just as interesting, like Farley Granger, who is famous for his parts in Hitchcock's Rope and Strangers on a Train. Later, Granger wrote a book in which he said he was bisexual, but Flynn says that they were both curious and friendly when they first started working at Warner Brothers, when they were both young and trying to find their way in an industry that expected everyone to be perfect. The book also talks about the fear and paranoia that were common at the time. People who run studios like Jack Warner and Louis B. Stars had to follow strict morals rules, or else the mayor would punish them. Flynn talks about the pressure to keep up a very manly image, the fake relationships for media, and the constant fear that one mistake could lead to shame, public exposure, and the end of one's career. He writes, "We lived in a world of shadows. Even when we slept, we wore masks." It's important to note that Flynn's thoughts don't just focus on sexual encounters. They also look at the mental depth and longing that come with them. In his writing, he talks about quiet nights spent away from the stage, laughing over whiskey and jazz records, sneaky looks at studio parties, and having to say goodbye with tears in his eyes because of fear and circumstance. He thinks, "Even when the cameras weren't rolling, we were all actors. But when the curtain came down, we were just guys who wanted to be loved and seen." If proven true, Flynn's statements could change how people think about his complicated life. He was long thought of as a womanizer and hedonist, and he faced serious accusations during his lifetime. These thoughts show a man who is trying to figure out who he is, how to love in a cruel world, and how to treasure relationship moments that history has forgotten. Naturally, doubters might question the truth of these kinds of accounts. Apocryphal stories are stories that were made up after the star died in 1959, according to some. But whether they are true or just part of the greater mythology surrounding Errol Flynn, these stories are interesting because they show the hidden realities of gay life in old Hollywood. No matter if Flynn's words were real or made up, they all point to a greater truth about the time. Many people lived in silence, loved in secret, and dreamed of a world that would one day fully welcome them behind the glittering front of fame. By 1959, Errol Flynn's career, which had once been a bright spot as one of Hollywood's most attractive and controversial leading men, had gone into a steep decline. He was losing popularity and his finances were getting worse. Flynn was famous in the 1930s and 1940s as the brave hero of movies like Captain Blood and The Adventures of Robin Hood. but by the end of the decade, he was not at all like he used to be. His finances were a mess because he spent too much, got into trouble with the law, lost money on investments, and lived a life full of excess in every way: drink, drugs, relationships, and more. In order to avoid going bankrupt, Flynn got on a plane on October 9, 1959, and flew north to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. He was trying to work out a deal for a Canadian businessman named George Calo to rent his favorite yacht, the Zaka. The Zaka, a 118-foot schooner, used to stand for Flynn's wealth and daring spirit. It had been the site of many famous people, parties, and boat trips over the years. Now, though, it was one of the few useful things he still had that he could use to help his finances. Flynn wasn't by himself on this trip. He was accompanied by Beverly Adland, a 17-year-old actress with whom he had a famous and controversial relationship. Even though their affair was a scandal, Flynn didn't seem to care what people thought about it. He kept Adland with him in both their personal and business lives. Even though a lot of people found their relationship troubling, it seemed to give Flynn some company and meaning in his last years. 5 days after landing in Canada on October 14, Flynn and Adland were being driven by Caldo to the airport to catch a flight back to Los Angeles. Suddenly, Flynn started to feel terrible pain in his back and legs. Because his pain was so sudden and intense, Calo became scared and quickly changed his plans, instead taking Flynn to Dr. Grant Gould, a doctor from the area. When they got to Gould's house, Flynn had a lot of trouble moving around. Later, witnesses said that the actor, who used to be very athletic and whose on-screen character was known for being quick and skilled with a sword, had a hard time climbing the stairs. His body now clearly shows that he has lived a hard life for decades. Dr. Gould tried to figure out what was causing Flynn's pain and thought it might be degenerative disc disease and spine osteoarthritis, both of which are common in older people, and were made worse by Flynn's years of drinking too much, overworking himself, and not taking care of his health. Going to ease the severe pain, Gould gave 50 mg of dimeryl-pathine, a strong opioid analgesic, through an IV. Flynn felt better quickly after taking the medicine, and as the severe pain started to go away, he allegedly started to talk and think. During one of his last clear hours, he began to tell a long and vivid story of his past adventures. The stories were full of bravado, fame, faraway places, love adventures, and the glory days of his movie career. People in the room paid close attention, as the old star, who is often painted in the media as careless and involved in scandals, showed a more human side. He was emotional, nostalgic, and may have been trying to regain some dignity in his later years. When someone offered him a drink, Flynn turned it down, even though he rarely turned down drinks in the past. The action was important. It was a quiet sign that he may have realized how bad his health was, or that he was tired of the bad habit that had taken over his life. After seeing that Flynn was behaving better, Dr. Gould advised that he lie down and rest before going to the airport. Flynn agreed and went into his bedroom, where Gould gave him a light massage on the legs to help his muscles rest even more, and his blood flow. In response, Flynn thanked Gould and said that he felt a lot better. It looked like things were getting better for a short time, but it wasn't. After only 20 minutes, Beverly Adland went to check on him and found Flynn not moving. There was panic. Dr. Gould rushed to help right away, and an ambulance was called. Right away. Flynn was taken to the Vancouver General Hospital by ambulance, but no matter how hard they tried to wake him up, he never did. One of Hollywood's most famous and controversial stars was found dead that night. He was 50 years old. The official death certificate and coroner's report that followed said the main cause of death was a myocardial infarction, or heart attack, caused by coronary thrombosis and extensive coronary atherosclerosis. These are conditions in which the arteries that bring blood to the heart clot and harden. Fatty liver atrophy and partial necrosis were two more factors that played a role. Both diseases are caused by heavy and long-term alcohol abuse. These results presented a sad but not surprising medical picture of a man whose body had been hurting for a long time by too much stress, lack of care, and excess.